Okay, gonna do a tutorial for Starcraft 2 Hardcore. This is a test map that I use just for a lot of stuff, just testing units out. He's guarding my city, don't mind him. So before I get into the overview, I was gonna do an overview of each of the units for each of the races. And before I go there, I wanted to, and I wish I had written all this down. I'm just gonna do all this just off the cuff. I wanted to talk about what StarCraft 2 Hardcore is as an overview. So before I started working on StarCraft 2 Hardcore, I was working on a World War III game on the 0K engine, and the engine was dated, but the game, I really feel like it had a lot of potential. It's just some of the engine limitations were holding it back in terms of how the battles played, how it appeared. So I was really into just modern warfare from a real-time strategy perspective. And so what I thought I would do just for fun was go to a different engine to try out, and I thought, you know what, it's been 10 years since I worked with StarCraft 2. StarCraft 2 Hardcore was originally made 10 years ago. Put about 5 months of work into it, and because it was still I was working on the beta test version, and so after a certain patch it wouldn't work anymore, and I got really pissed, so I went away for about 10 years and then I came back. But I thought I would try it out on the StarCraft 2 engine. And so basically what the ranges and speeds and everything are real world equivalents. So let me get this going here so you can see what I'm talking about. So yeah, in StarCraft 2 Hardcore, when you train small units, you get batches like this. You get basically 24 Marines and a medic, and a Marine leader who's got different abilities. So it makes for big battles. Same with the Zerg. When you spawn, like I spawn Zergling, boom. 25 Zergling. For a Marine, his range, he has two different weapons, a close range and a long range. His long range is 5, which is symbolic for 500 meters, and his close range is considered melee, which is mostly fully automatic. So 5 represents 500 meters in StarCraft 2 Hardcore. So when you see other units, like let me get a tank out here, hold on. Let me get like a battle tank out here. His range is 20, which is symbolic for 2 kilometers, 2,000 meters, which is about the effective range of a tank cannon. So basically, the ranges and the speeds of all of the units for the Terrans are equivalent to a real world counterpart. So for the battle tank, it'd be like an Abrams, basically. The Banshee is based off an AH-64. His speed is 9. A tank is 4. Also, the costs are very close to real-world equivalents as well. 250, 100, and then battle tank is 375. Because right now, an Abrams is worth about as much. Actually, it's about half as a AH-64 Apache. But for game balance purposes, the prices are what they are. But they're close. A lot of the prices are pretty close. A Falcon is basically like an F-16 Falcon, and it's much faster, speed 22, as opposed to a Banshee, speed 9. So, in fact, let me get this bad boy going so you can see him. So he gets to haul butt, and that right there, airspeed defense, pink, right off the map edge. I hate that. Basically, when certain high-altitude units are moving fast, oh yeah, and he shoots while he moves too, so he can strafe targets. When some air units that are meant to be like high-altitude are moving fast, they have an airspeed bonus of 8, I believe now. And what that basically means is small arms, see Marines do a damage of 2. Small arms units basically cannot touch a high altitude unit flying very fast, which is symbolic for him being like 10,000 feet high, and a Marine is not going to be able to shoot a jet that's 10,000 feet high. Now if he stop, okay, it goes away, and then boom, now they can do him damage. But while he starts to move, boom, it goes right back. So that's to really help with like high altitude bombers and aircraft like Scouts or Falcons, so they can fly over and not just get instantly fried. So there's that. Ranges, speeds, everything. Okay, now people usually, when they see it like a siege tank or artillery piece, in fact, let me get these out here. So this right here is basically an SPG, self-propelled gun, artillery, which in the real world has a range of 10 to 30 kilometers. So in game units, that's range 100. It should be 100 to 300. So the way that was worked in was 100 just on its own. See, let me get this guy going too. Siege tank is also 100. It costs 20 mineral to fire, and the projectile is delayed. Let me give you an example here. You run around back and forth. He's going to move his turret to attack, and then you will see a projectile fire. Boom. And it has a delay. So you basically, it almost got him. It basically is not useful for fast units that are moving. Well, it's not useful at all. You usually have to wait for the unit to stop, or you have to lead the target. Now he got lucky there because he got him on the turn. You have to lead the target, or they're used for like structures. They can't hit moving targets well. Same weapon on the ballista as for the siege tank in siege mode. Ballista is just half the price, and it doesn't have to go into siege mode. Anyway, the ranges on everything are real world equivalent to real human stuff. This is why Terran versus Terran fighting actually feels very realistic. And all of the units play the role that they do in the real world. Infantry, tanks, gunships, attack craft. So before I start getting into the units, that is why Terrans have the ranges and speeds that they do. Now, Protoss and Zerg, they have different values because it's science fiction. They're allowed to. We can have Zerglings being a lot faster than Marines. We can have just everything can be different. It doesn't have to apply to the real world. That's what kind of makes it fun. Notice I said kinda. But for Terrans, I'm very, very strict about it. I like the idea that all of the human units are actually using real world values. It gives a very realistic feel. This is a realism mod, by the way. Everything is meant to be realistic as possible without being unreasonable. The units are, as you've noticed, they are scaled to each other. All of the units are scaled to each other. And so you see this little Marine right here. And yeah, with Shift Tab that I'm doing right now, you can free rotate and mouse scroll in. You can actually see, let me get out here so you can get some of the other units in here. You can actually see how the unit was scaled. In fact, let me get a Spectre, because a Spectre is not in a Marine suit, and he's an actual, let's decloak him. He's an actual man-sized figure. And so you can see how, and yeah, people say, why are my SUVs so big? Because that's a little guy in that giant construction suit. So if you put him up here, boom. In fact, let's get a Wraith or something out here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Or you could just believe what I'm saying, where I actually very tediously went down to every single unit compared to cockpit size and guy size. Yes, I did lower the height of these air units to come down so then I could take the guy size, fit them in the cockpit, so to speak, get all the scales to scale. Everything has been scaled for all the races to be real scale. Now, as for the battlecruiser, yeah, here's a little bit of a spoiler. Let's get that going. It takes a long time. For the battlecruiser, yes, it should theoretically be like the size of the map. It's not practical for gameplay. So their compromise was struck. It's a lot bigger, but it's not like totally to scale to, you know, a Marine. Actually, a battlecruiser should be the size of several maps. So that is a battlecruiser. Okay. It's not, and you can only usually you can only forward about one of them at a time. You can make more than one, but that's extremely rare. Usually, to even get to make one is it takes a lot of effort and time and delayed gratification. You're not making other units you would like to make in order to save up for something like this. You're basically paying, if I can get an example here. Where is he? There you go. You're basically paying for a big shadow that kills things really well. And yeah, the shadow is usually good for morale for your guys and very bad for morale for the other side when they see that big old thing right there. And I'm going into enemy territory. There's a base over here and they've got a bunch of missile turrets set up. And he is not welcome to go near there. Which brings up actually the next subject. I'm glad that happened. Is not only is the siege tank range, 100, which also a rate of fire of once every 15 seconds. It's a very low damage per second. Actually, the amount of damage, if you do the math, with a Marine doing 2 damage every 1.5 seconds at range 5, it's actually a siege tank. Believe it or not, if you take that 110 damage and divide it by 15. He's actually doing, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while, but I believe it's 2.5 Marines of damage per second. Literally, him, and half of one of him. Let's see here. Is doing as much damage as a siege tank in damage per second. So yes, it has a very large range, but it doesn't do a lot of damage. If you're trying to take down a city, you need more cost-efficient units like infantry. A siege tank, it just takes too long. Now, it is very good, however, at taking out cannons, at taking out High Templar, at taking out enemy tanks. It's very good at taking out like a single unit that you need dead before all your infantry attack. And this is exactly how artillery is used. It's meant for taking out key targets before an assault, and that's how it's used. It's very expensive. In fact, a Marine is worth 2 mineral. A Zergling is worth 1 mineral. A Zealot is worth 8 mineral. A Hydrolisk is worth about 4.5 mineral each. So for a siege tank to fire, in fact, you poor souls, let me give you an example of what the area of effect is on the siege tank. For a siege tank to fire a 20 mineral round, you would have to kill 10 Marines in a tight cluster just to break even. So let's doom these poor Marines. Boom. Okay, so you got about 10 Marines. You about break even if they're clustered. Now, if they're not, you're going to lose material. So, and yes, a lot of units have hold fire and weapons free. I highly recommend keeping like missile turrets and siege tanks on hold fire. It will run you to the poorhouse if you don't. And they're not very good. They just pick the first target they see. You want to be in control of what targets are being used. So let's get to more of the ground to air. Let's build a missile turret here so you can see how it also has 100 range. And the reason for that is because projectiles can be dodged in StarCraft 2 Hardcore. Right there, 100 range, and its damage is 70 and 35 to biological. The reason being, it is able to lock onto mechanical targets more effectively than a biological target, which doesn't really show up so well. It makes good for Terran versus Zerg, since missile turrets are more useful versus Terran and Protoss and less useful versus Zerg. Let me see here. Let's get an air unit going so I can demonstrate this, and hopefully I don't mess up here. So I'm going to tell this Wraith to start doing his back and forth. And yeah, I wish it didn't do that turn on the dime thing. I've got some of the thing to behave a little. There we go. Here we go. Okay. Keep doing that, Wraith. Be good. Keep doing that. There we go. Okay, so he's in his circle pattern, which, by the way, is very effective when you have the strafe ability like on a Falcon or a Scout, and it just shoots whatever's in front of it. Because when it's doing... Why is his airspeed armor not coming in? Uh-oh. I gotta fix that. Hold on one second here. Write that down on the notepad. I just found something out. Why is... Oh. Well, let me get to that later. I hate bugs, and I just found one doing this video. How sad is that? What a terrible example. Okay, so anyway... So with missiles, you want to try and hit them either when they're still or at the right angle, kind of like in actual real air combat. You want to shoot at them from behind or from behind to the left, behind to the right slightly, but you don't want to shoot at them from the perpendicular, from the side, or if they're coming straight at you, that kind of works. So let me zoom out here so I can get this thing. Let me slow down so I can get this guy more accurately. First one I'm going to do is going to do a miss. Actually, that looks kind of... No, okay, that's going to miss, so you can see what I'm talking about. And you don't get it. So you see, 100 range doesn't mean a whole lot when you can dodge projectiles. Every projectile in the game you can dodge. In fact, let me get a Dragoon out here so I can demonstrate this even on a land target. Dragoons are terrible against lots of small units like Zerglings. It was ideal when designing the Zerg and Protoss to have a lot of the original StarCraft 1 counters. So Archons counter Zealots. I'm sorry, well that too, yeah. Archons counter Zerglings and Zerglings counter Dragoons. It just all kind of works out that way. Let me get one poor little Zergling here. Don't worry, no harm will probably come to him, probably. He's going to get out here and he's going to run back and forth so I can show you how projectiles are. Get him. Boom, he misses, he misses, he misses. And he'll do that all day. Now, if I run at him, dead. Just like that. If you run away or run at him, he'll get him. So you can dodge projectiles in this mod. All projectiles are dodgeable. So if you micromanage your air units, this poor missile turret is just having a hard time, isn't it? Eventually it'll get lucky. It'll fire it right at the right time. Well, maybe not. Not this close, not at this angle. So 100 range. Another thing is they cause gas for missile attacks, and usually the more range a unit has, the more gas it uses per attack. Now this says it costs 8 per gas. It's actually, I believe, 16. It's saying 8 per rocket. It fires 2 rockets at a time. So it's actually 16 gas per attack for a missile turret, which is still a very good deal if you use it right, because let's see here, a Falcon is 200 gas and 250 mineral, and a Wraith is 250 gas and 100 mineral. That's a really good deal considering that you're only spending about 20 gas to kill something worth 10 times the value. So you get 10 shots before you break even. So missile turrets counter things like Banshees for sure, which are slower and more prone to stopping. Or light aircraft like this, they one-shot them. In fact, if I can get you to do a little pattern of yourself, see if we can just get you to die. No. Yeah, 40 hit points, missile turret, 70 damage. It one-shots. We're going to fire that off, and you're going to probably miss that one. And then we're going to do an angle a little bit closer towards him so there's a higher chance of getting hit. Come on. Run away, maybe you got skipped. Fell into the minimum range. Here we go. So this will probably get him. Yep. It one-shots most aircraft, which makes the air combat is very, very real, especially when 2 Falcons come across like 2 Corruptors, which are the Zerg's air superiority unit. They can get into a fight, and you can micromanage. You can micromanage to dodge. Now, the Corruptor doesn't work like a normal Terran unit. It fires like kind of a semi-guided projectile, but it's not the same as missiles for. So they're going to try to get him. But like I said, the angle for some of these units, they're going to keep missing at this angle. But he's not shooting back. So if I wanted him, I like him in his pattern actually. I'm going to keep it that way. Air combat can be heavy, heavy micro, where you shoot, you move, you shoot, you move, you shoot, you move, you shoot, you move. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of micro with air units. They're the most micro heavy unit type of the game. If micromanagement is not your thing and you're not good at it, you're going to want to stick with like infantry and artillery. You're going to stick with some other combo. You're not going to want to go air units. You can also go covert, ghosts, Terran, ghost specters, something else. Super weapon like a strategic nuke. some other kind of thing, because if you're bad at micromanagement, you don't want to use air units, because all of their value comes from how you manage them. So I'm sure I forgot a lot of things. I'll get to them later, but that's kind of an overview. It's a realism mod. You can dodge projectiles. Everything is real scale. Tanks can run over enemy small units. In fact, let me give an example of this. There we go. We got little guys. Stop killing them before I want to kill them. Hold. No. Stop. So you can run them over. Boom. Smashed. Tanks run over small units, and Ultralisks run over buildings and tanks. But I will get to that later. And a Thor can too. If it's big, it can probably crush things a lot smaller than that. That's the general rule of thumb. Even this SPG right here can also run over Zerglings. So if it's got a track on it, like a tank track, it's going to smash units. Now buggies, they don't, for gameplay reasons. But if it's big, it's probably going to smash other units. You learn which ones smash and which ones don't early on. So that's kind of an overview of the mod. I want to get to the actual units now, and one of the things that I always shake my head about whenever new players come into playing this is when they immediately, and they've only played like one game, they've only been playing for 10 minutes, and they will immediately say something is overpowered. I don't think they know what they're talking about. Overpowered means there is no counter to it. There is nothing you can do about it. If he makes that, you're dead. That is what an overpowered unit is. The way StarCraft 2 Hardcore is right now, there are no overpowered units. Every single unit has usually more than one, multiple ways of countering it very well. And another thing is, every single unit in this game, it serves some purpose. And there is overlap. There are some units that kind of do what another unit does well, but maybe in a different way, so there is overlap. It's not trying to be like chess, where a knight moves only one way and a bishop moves only one way. That was kind of the design scheme for StarCraft 1 and 2, where they wanted every unit to be perfectly unique. I'm not doing that here. This is a realism mod. This is basically meant to simulate kind of like real battles in the StarCraft universe, and it's not trying to be like, it's not trying to be where a unit has to do everything and no other unit in your category can do anything like it. I'm not doing that. In this, there is overlap. There are some units that are very similar to the other. A stalker and a hunter. Well, you would know. Never mind. There's overlap. Let's get into some of the units now. So the first unit you're able to make for a Terran is a Marine. They're your general purpose unit. And without upgrades, they get countered for cost against Zerglings and Zealots. So very early on, you are going to need to make bunkers in your base as soon as you can. They are just weak without upgrades. Now with upgrades, Marines are amazing. They're very cost efficient, and they're amazing when you have upgrades. I highly recommend, where is that bad boy, since I just moved everything around for, okay. Engineering Bay. It has, oh, I do need to talk about one other thing before I get into Terrans. In this, there are choices now. Some things like weapon damage or armor, you can just upgrade those, and they do cost a lot, and they do take a lot of time. The reason is because originally there wasn't even going to be upgrades because of how powerful the upgrades are. This right here, this one upgrade right here, which is 150, which is an amazing deal. It will cause your Marines' damage to go from 2 to 3. That's a 50% gain. In fact, it is one of the largest gains in the entire game in terms of value. For like a Hydrolisk, let me get some Hydras out here. For a Hydrolisk, come on guys, let's get out here. They have initial damage of 3, same range as a Marine 5, slower rate of fire, though they have their melee. Their upgrade, where is my evolution? There it is. Same cost as a Marine, less time as a Marine, but they're only going to get 25% benefit in terms of damage. The Marine upgrade is probably one of the most important ones. The only reason you wouldn't do it early on is if you're trying to rush to a factory and go factory units, which is reasonable, because I personally, and this is just my own preference, I would rather have a group of several groups of Marines and a tank with no upgrades as opposed to a bunch of Marines with upgrades and no tank. The tank Marine combo is very strong because the tank can do things like take out cannons and stuff that can just shred a whole group of Marines. And that's another thing I do need to mention in this. Defenses in this mod matter. In fact, not only do they matter, they are essential. They are the most cost-efficient units because they don't move. They don't go anywhere. You can't use them to attack, so they should rightfully be the most cost-efficient units to defend an area. An example of this is, here's a Photon Cannon right here, 120 shields, 80 health, 50 damage, range 20, one shot every 1.25 seconds. A Dragoon without any upgrades or anything is 15 range, 50 damage, 30 towards light, and a slower rate of fire. In fact, let me get 2 Dragoons out here to kind of demonstrate this. And it's going to be hard because I'll have to manually target them. I'm going to make it on slow motion here. A Dragoon right now costs 200 middle, 50 gas, and a Photon Cannon costs about half that. Oops, I didn't show it. It's 100 mineral, 25 gas. You could literally make 2 Photon Cannons for the cost of 1 Dragoon. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now let me show you what 2 Dragoons attacking a Photon Cannon will do, and consider the fact that you can make twice as many Photon Cannons as you can make Dragoons. So I've told them to attack. So the first Dragoon is already dead. Oh, get going. See, there's a delay there. I did not. But basically, if I didn't delay, it was set up so that basically 1 Photon Cannon can defend against 2 Dragoons. And yeah, as you see here, mechanical units that are damaged will not move as fast. Basically, for half the cost of a Dragoon, you can basically defend against 2 Dragoons with 1 Photon Cannon. Defense units are your most cost-efficient form of unit. Okay? Players who do not defend their bases, and these are so many bad habits that people have developed playing Blizzard's real-time strategy games. They expand before defending when you should defend before expanding. They don't make any kind of base defense. They initially just make like 5 barracks. Okay, in Starcraft 2 Hardcore, the resources do not expire, so the goal is to try to take as much of the map as possible. Your income is what matters. Okay, when people say that the resources are so slow in the beginning, they don't understand that's intentional for game pace. I have tried all different kinds of settings, the speed, faster resource income, slower resource. I've tried all. I've found a perfect sweet spot where it is just right to where the only way you can get a super unit like a battlecruiser is if you have like a third of the map for a while. Anything more, and anybody can make a battlecruiser for just camping in their little corner, not even expanding, and that's crap. That's just total crap. You have no reason to try to engage the map. That's the whole point. You want to try to engage as much of the map as possible, not just hide in your little corner. If this were a chessboard, it's like trying to control as much of the map as possible rather than just, I'm going to win the game by hiding in my little corner and save up for a battlecruiser very quickly and then kill them all with my battlecruiser. It's stupid. That's garbage. And that's what people are used to playing Blizzard games. Now, in this, the income is exactly the way it is. A person should be inspired to expand by how slow their income is with just 1 base. You need more income coming in. But people will immediately just drop the mod, like when the very, very impatient ones that I don't want in the community, they will literally quit after a couple minutes when they see the initial income, which is why players start with 1800 mineral, 50 gas. Let me get some prices here so you can understand what that means. Where's my SCV? So barracks, 150 mineral academy, 20 mineral, 50 gas, engineering bay, 300 mineral bunker, 50 mineral. So with 1800 mineral, what that's meant to do is you have enough resources to kind of set up the initial start base that you want. You don't have to actually, believe it or not, it's faster than StarCraft 2. Even though the income looks slower, it's faster. You're getting, each Marine is only worth 2 mineral. Okay? Which is a lot less than each Marine, if you think about it, in regular StarCraft 2. You have enough starting resources to choose if you want to expand. How many expansions? Do you want engineering bay? Do you want to quickly be able to get to a factory? You basically have enough to start create a nice little start city without having to do all of the waiting to get to the start city. And you get a lot more units per value. And yeah, if you haven't noticed, there's day-night cycles in StarCraft 2 Hardcore. It's already nighttime, looks like it. And if it's not, yeah, it's after the 30-minute mark, so it's nighttime. Nighttime is reduced vision for basic units like Marines. You need vision units at nighttime. Spectres, Ghosts, Wraiths, Scouts, Banshees. Units that have good vision to go with your units. Vision in this mod is so important, especially at nighttime. In fact, the real deciding factor of which team wins, especially in a Terran versus Terran battle, is who had better vision and who killed whose tanks. Man, why is it telling me? Blizzard. And they're there. I made a unit. There. Go away. See, yeah, even in my test map, they've got dumb rules. Like their AFK rule in lobbies. If you don't move your mouse every 3 minutes or something, then it just kicks you when you clearly are in the lobby full of people and you want to play. Anyway, don't get me started on all of Blizzard's wonderful ideas. And yes, that's sarcasm for the stupid people out there. That put him out of his misery. I can't stand to see that Dragoon just be there suffering. Okay, so day-night cycles. Vision is so important. It's very important, especially at night. Vision is just a whole other aspect of the game. Vision war. In fact, in a toss versus toss battle, they've got observers, you've got observers. Your Immortals, which are in this mod, an anti-air unit. They're actually one of the best anti-air units in the game. They're basically a surface-to-air missile launcher with air-to-air or ground-to-air guns. That's why their guns are always pointing up. They don't point down; they point up for a reason. I got my battlecruiser still there, don't I? I'm gonna send him off on a mission. Just get going, battlecruiser. There's that cool shadow. I swear. The shadow thing just adds so much to battles. When you're in the middle of a battle and you just see that thing flying over, it's just like, oh crap. Yeah, the Immortal, let me see if he can't. You can choose guns only or all weapons. Nah, he'll accidentally kill the Wraith, never mind. He's got the same missile basically as a missile turret. Antimatter missiles, 40-20 damage, range 100, a little bit faster rate of fire. Is basically in a Protoss versus Protoss war. It's who can spot whose observers first and shoot them down with missiles. It's so important because when you've got observers and he doesn't, now you can actually spot targets for your Reaver, which is a Protoss artillery unit. I guess I'll get to that later. But vision is it's this whole other level. It's its whole other battle. It's who has better vision than who. And you want to try to keep your enemy blind while you can see everything. It's so important. You can see what they're making. You can see so you can counter. It's just so important. Vision matters in this mod. Okay. But I got sidetracked. Let me get back to the actual units. So, okay, a Marine, like I said, his first upgrade is very important. The upgrades increase in price and time exponentially. They double. So level 2 is 960 seconds. As you can see here, level 1 is 480 seconds. 150, and the time on these are not random, they're not just random. Okay, they are actually timed to time with other things like roaches and stuff. Roach armor, by default, cannot be pierced by a Marine. Roaches are a natural counter to Marines because of their armor. Armor 2. Let me get one roach out here. And I'm just going to have him run up to... oh yeah, I forgot. They can't attack allied units. Okay, yeah, but you can see. 2 damage on a Marine. There's a reason why Marines can't attack friendly units. I'm not going to go into that right now. But Marines do 2 damage. Roach have 2 armor. Basically, no damage is done to a Roach from a Marine. Now, once you give that Marine his first weapons upgrade, he does 3 damage. He's going to get at least 1 through. All of these things, all these Marines right here, will actually do very well against the Roach now with their upgrade. So, the timing of the infantry weapon upgrade is also meant to coincide with how soon a Zerg player can get Roach. And so the times on these things are not accidental. They are very much intentional. Okay, they're very much designed. So anyway, weapons upgrade, very important for a Marine. A lot of people don't use the armor upgrade. Actually, in a Terran versus Terran fight, the armor upgrade is actually very important. Against other races, like Protoss, armor upgrade in general is almost usually useless. All of Protoss weapons have such a high pierce rate. Lightsabers, photon cannons, all these things just get through armor like nothing. Against Protoss, armor upgrades almost don't matter. Against Zerg and Terran, they usually do. Because, like I say, Marines doing 2 damage. Zerglings here with their, Hydrolisk with their 4 damage melee. Where's my little Zergling? I know, surely, there we go, I have a Zergling left here. Zergling here with his 4 damage claws also. So that extra 1 armor does cause them to be like 25% less effective. So the armor upgrade is still good. It's really meant for like heavy infantry units, like a Marauder. Marauder has been redesigned to be more like a Warhammer 40k unit. It has a bolt gun now. It's a damage 5, range 6. It's a much higher pierce. Roaches are countered by Marauders because of their pierce, but I will get to them in a second. So armor actually, and they have 2 armor too to start out with, like a Roach. Armor stacking on these guys actually helps them a lot. That first armor upgrade will keep a Marauder from being pierced from a Marine who has a weapons upgrade. So the armor upgrade, it is important. Most people like the weapons, I do too. It's usually better to go weapons upgrade rather than armor for Terrans, for their infantry, but there are times when you still want to use the armor. But anyway, back to the units. Okay, so the Marine is your general purpose unit. In the beginning, it's very weak. It gets countered by basically everything. Zerglings, Zealots. You need them in bunkers in the beginning, just to discourage your enemy from attacking, because bunkers are not made of cardboard anymore. Bunkers are very thick. Let me get all my Zerglings out here so you can see. Here's 24 Zerglings. Rest in peace, that one Zergling that died for the greater good. I'm going to have them just attack so you can see. These things are armored. These are basically just giant chunks of steel now. And claws just are not good enough. Stop repairing you. Stop. Go away. Do something else. Mine. Give me money. Okay. Make me rich, little SCV. Make me rich. You can do it. So, see, slowly goes down. They don't get through the armor. Zerglings basically are just knocking on the door. There's nothing they can do. A Roach, on the other hand, he has an acid melt, and he also does 10 damage. The only issue though is we're allied units, or my own unit, so it's not going to create the melt. But the acid, when it gets on there, it actually does the most amount of damage. It slowly melts the bunker down. There are other units, Banelings, Roach, that kind of thing, that get through bunker armor, but Zerglings and Hydrolisks cannot get through bunker armor. In fact, hop out, guys, so you can see the stats here. Bunker armor is 4, like a tank, which is also 4. You need armor-piercing units to get through a bunker, and you don't have those units early on, of course, unless you've got Zealots. You don't have those units early on, so bunkers for a Terran are their salvation early on. I always tell new players in their first game, engineering bay, bunkers. That's one of the first things you just make if you're playing against Zerg or Protoss. You just have to do it. Okay, against Terran, you can get away with not making, I still make bunkers, but you can get away with it and just make auto turrets. Auto turrets, which are basically a Gatling gun. Let me... And yes, all the sounds are actually real-world sounds that I added, like from an A-10 Gatling gun and that sort of stuff. Rocket artillery sounds, they're all real-world sounds. The distant gunshot sounds are all real. Basically, an auto turret it's based off like a 30mm Gatling gun, or like some kind of a anti-missile deck gun on a naval ship. It's a very damage 7. It's very armor piercing, and it's a very high rate of fire. It can also shoot down missiles. It has a turn time though, so if it's not already facing the direction, it'll probably miss it. But if it's already facing the direction, it will shoot incoming missiles. So the auto turret, which is 50 mineral, is very valuable for a defensive unit. And in a Terran versus Terran game, it could literally just shred as many Marines as it has ammo. Now I need to talk about that ammo. Terrans use ammo now. You'll notice Marines don't have it. Marines don't have any energy, but for Terrans, energy is ammo. Okay, so this buggy right here has 50. This auto turret here has 50. Sea-Stink right here is 180. And it uses, let's have him start attacking a steel wall. It uses up his ammo pretty fast. Now, normally against infantry, it'll just shred infantry like nothing because he's doing 5 damage at 0.12 rate of fire. And to resupply a unit, he's already been supplied by this guy. Supply depots, resupply units. Now there are ways to make this easier so you don't have to keep going back to the base. Armored personnel carriers carry supply, so let me hear you shoot something. Boom. Okay, so he went down 20. Now stop you. Now the armored personnel carrier transferred some of its supplies to keep this unit fully stocked. So armored personnel carriers, APCs, I'm going to call them from now on, they can supply units in the field. This is usually most useful for units like Marauders or Firebats that are slower, and you don't have an unit early on to resupply. Armored personnel carriers does that. Another way of doing it, there are 2 other ways. You can do it either by dropship. Actually, there are several other ways. The dropship, see how he starts off at 0? Well, he's going to go by this depot, and he's going to pick up supply now. See him filling up? The supplies are going up. And yeah, believe it or not, the supply depots actually do empty, but I got a fusion core near it, which actually causes it to regen very, very fast. So he fills up, and he's almost full. Now I'm going to move him out of the way. Thor, why don't you kill something? Yeah, sorry about the skip on the frame rate. I don't know why, but ever since the last update on the video card, the thing just skips. Stop! Who is supplying? You! Die! Just die. I don't need you anymore, APC. Okay. Start shooting something again so we can empty you. So his ammo is going down every time he attacks. Okay, good. And then the dropship is going to come by and going to resupply. Yeah, you can't pick up a Thor with a dropship anymore, but you can with a heavy transport, and I'll show that here in a second. So he lost 30 of his supplies, he got 30 supplies. So you can use dropships also to resupply units in the field. Also, for all races, you can't just transfer resources instantly to an ally anymore. There's a number of reasons. Also, it keeps people from taking resources from their cheater resource AI ally. It's a huge exploit, wrecks the game. So now also it prevents early resource pumps to one player, which can mess up the timing of a lot of things if all players on a team just put all resources into one player, and pretty soon you got units on the field that not one player should be able to have the time. So it takes time to finally be able to get a dropship. By then it's okay. You can drop mineral pallets right here, which are worth 400 each, so it takes 400 out of your bank account and it puts it on the ground. Or you could do the same with gas too. So you can do that for your allies, for like if you've got too much of one and they've got too little of another, or they're going to go like a strategic nuke, which costs a lot of gas and they need some extra gas, but they don't have the time to mine it. That's where the dropship comes in. It can do that. The heavy transport it's a big sucker, and it can hold what is it? More than 100 Marines. It can hold tanks. It can hold. It has got a bunch of cargo space. In order to use it and all that, you have to land it. It's also got 5 armor and 1,000 hit points, as opposed to a dropship which has 120 hit points and 3 armor. So this thing can just fly over infantry and not have to worry about damage. It can just land and just dump off a giant army. It's like a flying Nidus canal, basically. And now see how it's loading up on supplies right here? That's 1,000 supplies. You can actually use it as just like a resource hub for armies in an area. Because when you land, let's take off now. Yeah, and it still does that. I don't know why it still does. It's still loading. Oh, well, no, never mind. You could just land. Like, let's have these guys go out over here, commit some war crimes. We don't need a medic. She gone. He gone. He gone. He gone. He gone. So they've got, who's got low ammo here? Alright. I think you already get the picture even if you don't have to see it. I just like to demonstrate it. That's the whole point of the video. So they've got some ammo missing, right? And once there, boom, it refills all of the units around it for ammo. So you don't have to keep going back to your base. There are other ways to refill ammo in the field. Protoss also, same thing with shield batteries for some of their units, like scouts, Immortals, but some of them still have a slow recharge rate, so you don't have to have a shield battery. It's just recommended because it gets to them a lot faster. There is a cost. I didn't mention that yet. Ammo is not free. Okay, only Marine ammo is free, but other ammo, like for tanks and everything else, it costs. When I transferred the 30 energy to the dropship and then to the Thor, when it went to the dropship, it was charged. It's 1 mineral per 1 energy ratio. So if you transferred 30 energy to a dropship to then transfer to a Thor, that took 30 mineral out of you to do that. Okay, so it's not free. If you wonder where your resources are going, you're paying for expensive ammunition. This is what makes, and the reason for this is it allows lower tier units like Marines, Zealots, and Zerglings to always be useful. No matter how advanced the units get on the map, your most cost-efficient solution is still your early game units. It does not antiquate them. It doesn't make them unneeded anymore later in the game. All of the units are needed for something. Okay, it's kind of like a chessboard, how you're deciding which units you want to bring out onto the field first. But all of the chess pieces are useful. A rook is useful, a knight is useful, a bishop is useful. They're just used for different things. And so I didn't want to antiquate the pawns, and you would antiquate pawn. If I were to get rid of ammunition, all of a sudden Marines really don't offer you that much. They're just weak, pathetic, and why not make just Marauders instead always, and then just never make Marines anymore? Because Marines have free ammo. Okay, they're the most basic the unit it is, or the more basic the unit is, the more efficient they generally are. The Zergling is your most efficient unit in the game in terms of cost. It is hard to go poor making nothing but Zerglings when you have multiple expansions, because each Zergling costs 1 mineral. So here's an auto turret. It does 7 damage. Okay, which means it costs 0.7 energy per shot. Which means that you'll break even shooting against there he is. He's down to 48 actually. It took him 2 shots. 2 shots to kill 1 Zergling. It's going to cost him 2 mineral, basically. It's actually 1.3. It rounds it, but or 1.4. My bad. Basically, you can go poor just shooting at Zerglings. Zerglings are your most cost-efficient unit. Granted, they can't kill bunkers without any upgrades. They can't kill a whole lot except just Marines kind of out in the open. They don't kill a whole lot, but they can actually make your enemy poor in ammunition expenses if they waste it on Zerglings. So Zerglings are actually the most cost-efficient unit in the game. I would say the Marine is probably the second most cost-efficient unit in the game. And in large groups, Marines can be very deadly just because of how they're all attacking at the same time. But anyway, I want to get back to the Marines, and I'll try not to get off subject onto things like, well, you do need to know about energy, how that works. But let me get back to the units. In fact, let me take a quick pause real quick to make sure all of this recording actually recorded. That would be really annoying if it didn't. I'll be right back.